Ladies and gentlemen, it's time! It's the Zapata Brand Boxing Podcast! Introducing first, fighting out of the Zapata Brand Studio in Berwick, Pennsylvania. He is an expert in boxing and bagels, George Zapata!
Hey, fight fans, welcome to the Zapata Brand Podcast Boxing Edition, brought to you by Ringside. Go to ringside.com/podcast, and you too can get upwards of 40% off selected brands. Well, my next guest needs no introduction. He is one of the greatest trainers in boxing history, one of the greatest broadcasters. Currently, the great Teddy Atlas joins the Zapata Brand once again. Teddy, how are you?
Good, George. How are you? How are you and your family? It's always about family. How's everybody?
My family's good. Family's good. Things are good. Football now, big season. My kids have now elected for football for a little bit. Berwick's a big football town. So Friday Night Lights, always big around this area. So right now they're good. The gym's doing really well, thanks to your contribution there from the Dr. Theodore Atlas Foundation. It was very helpful. I don't want to let that go unnoticed, Teddy. That was a very generous donation you gave to us last year. That's the last time I saw you, was back in November. But how are you feeling? I know your operation went well. How's your recovery?
Yeah, I had a full tear of the MCL and ACL. It happened out in Saudi Arabia, where I was training some of the young kids that they're bringing up over there. They're developing a team of good fighters, actually, young team over there. So they had me over there, asked me if I would give the kids a couple lessons, and I tore it. Came back, got surgery in Manhattan at HSS Hospital for Special Surgery. They do a great job. I guess they know what they're talking about. They told me it's a 9-month to a year recovery. I'm about not quite 5 months in, 4.5 months, and it's still not right. But I'm doing rehab the way I'm supposed to, hard, up in the city 3 times a week, and it's going to take time. Obviously, it's not moving fast enough for me. But then again, I'm a little impatient, and
And a little.
yeah, I'm a little impatient. I want it to be done yesterday and to be better and be 100%. It's definitely not that, but it's heading in the right direction.
Well, impatient you are, and you're covering the UFC September 14th at the Sphere. Going to be a historic show on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. You can buy it there. Sean O'Malley against Merab. O'Malley's 18-1, Merab 17-4. And I want to break down 2 things first. First, the overall experience. What do you expect from this overall experience at the Sphere? It's supposed to be one of a kind. What are you expecting from UFC 306 for the event itself?
$20 million worth. No, I mean that's the quickest way to get right into it. No way Bob Arum and Top Rank would have spent that, and not, I mean, come on, Bob. They got pockets that are deep. I'm not saying they're any deeper than Dana White's over at UFC, but it's not just about the deepness of pockets. It's about the willingness to go deep into your pockets. It's always about that. And Dana White wanted to be the first. He said he was going to be the first. I think Arum had mentioned something, 2 years ago about it, but in reality, Dana White, put the money up, $20 million to get it right, where they can do the first ever live sporting event in the Sphere. So I think it's going to be spectacular. I mean, again, $20 million just to do a one and done. I mean, just wow. I can't wait to see whatever the hell that bought. Whatever the bells and whistles for that thing is, it's going to be interesting to see. And then, the fights are good. I mean, you got Sean O'Malley. It's right up my alley. I mean, to me, he could be a boxer. I mean, he's that good. He's that good at striking. He's that versatile. He's a guy. If I walked in a room and he was, he was on the TV, and I didn't notice that he didn't have shoes on, I would take him as a fighter. I would say, yeah, this guy's legitimately a boxer. You know, he's controlling the range, ring generalship. You know, he knows his way around the ring. He's got quick feet. He's got good speed on his hands. He puts punches together. He sets traps. He's a natural counterpuncher. He's got pop on his punches like a lot of wiry guys do. When they're wiry like that, they usually get good leverage on their punches. Again, if I walked in a room and he was on, I'd say, "Oh, what? I never heard of this fighter. But what fighter is this guy? Oh, it's Sean. You know, it's Sean O'Malley, uh, the UFC champion. Oh, okay. But so for me, I expect him to stay with his strength to box. Marab is a beast. He's more of a beast, obviously, on the mat. But O'Malley, like anyone whose strength is one thing, they have to become versatile enough in the other things to, if you don't excel there, to at least protect there, to at least survive there. And he's done a great job of that, where, he's very good at defending takedowns, at surviving those areas. He's very good at it. And he can handle himself even on the floor a little bit. But obviously, his strength is to stand and box, or strike, as the proper term is in UFC.
Let me ask you how important it's going to be for him to use his size advantage, because Marab, when he fought Cejudo, who is he's small, he's very small. He got caught a few times. Now, believe it or not, Sean O'Malley is an underdog. He's minus 110. I believe it's 110 and 115. Do those odds match up to what you're feeling or no?
No, I don't think it's going to get to the look. My feeling is there's a good chance it doesn't get to the mat. And if it doesn't get to the mat in any consequential way, I don't see how O'Malley can lose. I mean, he's that good at striking. Again, his jab, controlling range, setting up. If you wait on him, you're patient on him, he'll beat you to the mark. He'll get shots off. If you get over anxious, he's going to counter you like he did Sterling. So if you're looking to sit down and time him, he's going to give you angles to take
Right.
that away from you. I mean, to me, he's got the package. I mean, on my last podcast, I compared him, and don't go nuts there, fight fans. I just said there's a lane there that you could compare him to the great, and to me, one of my favorite fighters of all time, was the greatest lightweights of all time. I put him in that category of lightweights because he also fought at welterweight and stuff. But one of the greatest lightweights of all, Sweet Pea Whitaker, Pernell Whitaker. Oh my goodness! Oh
Yeah.
my goodness! He had the right nickname. He was so sweet. And I'm watching him when I was getting ready for my last podcast and getting ready to go to UFC out there to cover it for ESPN next week. And I'm watching and just how magical he was, making guys miss, countering, using the ring, stepping around them, controlling range. And then I watch O'Malley and I say, wow, there is a similarity. And that's I can't give a higher compliment than that. And again, I'm not going nuts. I'm not saying he's Pernell Whitaker for the fans out there. They get crazy right away. They say, oh, he hasn't cleaned out his class yet. How can you say such a thing? I can say it because there's a comparison there, because of his skill sets. He's good defensively. Of course, Pernell was one of the greatest defensively. He moves his head. He makes you miss with his legs or his head movement. Again, he controls range beautifully. He's got quick hands. You look at him. You look at Pernell Whitaker. If you don't see some similarities, as great a compliment as it is, where again some people might think it's too early to give anyone that kind of compliment this early in their career, but to me, you have to notice and recognize those similarities.
Let me ask you this: you compare him to Pernell Whitaker as far as his skill set and the way he moves around the ring and what have you. The one thing Pernell Whitaker lacked, which I love Pernell Whitaker as a fighter, the one thing he lacked, I thought, was the superstar potential that I see in someone like Sean O'Malley. If he were to win on this Saturday, well, it'll be next Saturday. We're filming this on Friday, but next Saturday, would you see them putting the rocket ship to UFC, putting the rocket ship on his back and taking him? Because there's a point where Conor McGregor, you're going to have to move on from him. I don't even know if he has many fights left in him. And you build a superstar like that with the machine that UFC is and the way TKO is, you got a superstar in your hands that could go potentially across into the mainstream. Am I right?
Yeah, no, you're 100%. I think he's halfway there. He's already into that atmosphere. If he's not in the stratosphere, he's heading right towards it. You mentioned, would they put a rocket ship on his back? Listen, I think they have Scud missiles over there at the UFC because there's a few guys with rocket ships on their back, that are coming up in place of the great Conor McGregor. And Conor McGregor, people hate him, like him, love him, whatever. I don't care. He's a pioneer. He's the one that, in many ways, like Muhammad Ali opened up the door for bigger purses, for fighters. Conor McGregor has done that. He is that guy. He is that big. Yeah, he's on his way out. He's older now. He's made a lot of money. He's had injuries. Obviously, they're looking to replace. So everyone's got to be replaced, no doubt about it. And Sean O'Malley is definitely at the top of the list or near the top of the list of replacing that kind of superstar. But again, there's Scud missiles over there at the UFC. There's other guys. There's other guys that are either right on par with O'Malley, moving forward fast too, as we speak, or guys who are ready to. They just need one or two more fights. They need that signature fight. You kind of alluded to it. They need that coming out party fight. Toboya, I talk about the great striking abilities of O'Malley. I got to put Toboya in there. Let him get a couple more fights, and let's see what we're saying about Toboya. He's that good. He is that good for me in the striking department.
And he is a massive star in Brazil, just a massive star that he would bring the whole country with him. So that same night, UFC is going to go head to head with Canelo Alvarez. Canelo's had this date for many years. In the Mexican Independence Weekend, he always does. He does Cinco de Mayo. He's always had that. Will the UFC get overshadowed by Canelo Alvarez come Saturday night?
There's a rematch, George, where we have a precedent here. A couple years ago, they did this. They went head to head. And guess what? The Canelo's got a little embarrassed. Quite frankly, they actually had to delay coming out for the UFC fight. They had to delay. There's famous or infamous pictures of Canelo sleeping on the couch, waiting an extra hour before letting the UFC. They were cocky. They were, everyone has their right to be cocky and to say, no, I'm better. We're gonna go head to head. We're gonna win it. Our fans are gonna prove it that we're gonna win it. We're gonna outshine UFC or we're gonna outshine boxing. Well, when last time they went head to head, UFC boxing at the last minute had to back down. They had the Canelo people. They had to say, okay, we're gonna delay it. I think they delayed it. I don't know if it was an hour, 45 minutes, whatever. They had to delay it, and they had to wait for the what was the BMF belt, where was Masvidal
Yep.
and
Was it Diaz?
Masvidal
Was it
and
Diaz?
Diaz, yeah,
Yeah.
Nate Diaz and Masvidal, and they had to back off. So I don't know. They're doing it again. So it's already 1-0 for UFC. I don't know how this is going to play out. You got on the side of boxing, you have a couple things that give them an advantage. You have Mexican Independence Day. Of course, you have the massive, great Mexican fan base that is with Canelo. Great. You have all that, and you have cheaper ticket prices. So you have all that. But the UFC is a monster brand. And, you also, at the end of the day, before you really could judge who wins this battle, if you want to call it a battle, and it is to a certain extent, you have to figure in at the end of the day or the end of the night pay-per-view. You got to figure in pay-per-view because that is going to be a big part of it. Who does the better pay-per-view? And UFC, look, Canelo's a pay-per-view monster, but so is UFC. So, and another thing boxing has, if you want to again, really break it down the way I'm breaking it down for disadvantages, advantages, both sides, boxing for the first time really might have an advantage of having, if not better, as good an undercard as UFC that always has good undercards. But that's an interesting undercard with Canelo. Let's not forget that,
Yeah.
George. That has to be weighed in. They finally have a good undercard. Now, when I say finally, I have to pull back a little bit because since Turkey Al Sheikh came along with with the Saudi money and with his commitment to really change boxing the way he has and give fans fights that they weren't getting, the undercards stunk. For the most part, they stunk. I mean, it was a freaking promoter just putting his A side guy, his next star. He wanted to, he wanted to get him another win. It was like watching feeding time at the zoo with the lions. I mean, it was ridiculous. You had nothing but the A side against the B, the C side, and they were just building records for the promoter for their next star. But now with Turkey Al Sheikh, the undercards have been unbelievable the last 10 months that he's been around or whatever it's been. And again, got to give credit to the promoter over there with the Canelo fight. What is it, Heyman, I guess?
Al Heyman. Al Heyman.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, you gotta give Al credit. He put together a good undercard that aside from what Turkey Al Sheikh has done the last 10, 11 months, there has not been really strong undercards for boxing. So, and look, it's a good undercard for the UFC too. But
Yeah.
some people might complain and say, everyone gets spoiled. It could have been better. You could have done it. You could have. It's a good undercard, but
Right.
the difference is boxing has a good undercard too. So I don't know who's going to win that battle. It's an interesting battle. I think I got a better chance of figuring out who's going to win the fight.
well, let's quickly let me give you a couple of little points here on that. I think Dana, and you correct me if you think I'm wrong. I think Dana White is playing the long game here. The reason being is because I think he realizes Canelo's on his. He loves the date, the Mexican Independence Weekend date. He loves that date. I think he's looking long term to try to build up the Mexican fan base. And when they do get a superstar, Morano's the only superstar they've had, and he's not at that level of a Canelo, a Mexican-born UFC fighter. I think he's playing the long game in this situation where, yes, he might not have the windfall of cash that he had from UFC 300. I think his gate's going to be over 21 million. It's going to be a record. There's only 1,400 seats left. Al Heyman is a great promoter, but he does the old Al Heyman giveaway tickets too. So yes, he might have a sellout, an Al Heyman sellout.
Good point.
But,
Good point. Good point. Paint in the house, baby. Paint in the house.
but the reality is, UFC is such a strong brand that just because you have Canelo at the top doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have that big gate. With MGM guaranteeing the gate, which is back and forth, I don't know who's telling the truth there. I'd lean towards the side of they're guaranteeing the gate, because why wouldn't you do that to have Canelo there? I think this is a long game play for Dana White to say we'll take a little bit less money now, but long term, Canelo's out the door. This is going to be our Mexican Independence Weekend. UFC is that big of a brand, and he is by far the best promoter in the combat sports.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
First of all, I'm not betting against UFC and Dana White. Look, for Dana White, it's always been about the brand, building the brand. What does that mean? That means it takes time. That means future, not just present. Boxing, let's be honest here. Boxing, I've been in it 50 years. The promoters, it's about today. Yeah, I hate to tell you. I hate to break the news to you, Georgie boy, but it's about with boxing, it's always for the promoters. Yeah, it's about building up their fighter. Yes. and getting them to. But it's about today. It's about right now. I want to make it now. They're not thinking, oh, what's best for the audience? What's best for the fan base? Because that's tomorrow. That's building for tomorrow because the fan base is building for now and tomorrow. So, oh, what's better for the brand? What's better for the sport? No, no, there's 5 or 6 power brokers in boxing. Each one of them are thinking about their turf, their piece of turf, and how can I put a castle on my piece of turf and put a mort around that castle where I control that right now and don't worry about anywhere else. Don't worry about the brand overall of boxing. It'll take care of itself. It has for hundreds of years. It'll take care of itself. I'm not worrying about the fans. They're always going to be there. They're like James Dolan with the Knicks. You give them anything over at the Garden, but
Oh,
the fans
jeez.
the fans. Although they Knicks have been better, they've been better the last year.
They have.
But still. Dolan don't give a damn. He don't give a. Oh no, it's New York. It's Madison Square. The fan, I don't care. I'll give him anything I want to give him. The fans will still be there for the Rangers, for the Knicks. I don't care. I'm sitting on a golden pot, and I don't care. Well, same thing with the promoters in boxing. They don't care. They never cared, and they just did their thing with their network because the network is their partners. That's their sugar daddy. They did their thing with the network. They made their bundles, and then they said, okay, now what's next? Now's what's next after today. Okay, now Dana White, whole different kettle of fish. One guy controlling it. One guy, the CEO, one guy in charge, one guy who says which way we're going, and that guy, of course, he has to think, I have control of everything. I want the future. I want to keep building this brand. I don't want to be just good today. I got to be good tomorrow. I got to be good next year. I got to be good 5 years from now. So yeah, you're 100% right. That's always that game and the long game in UFC compared to boxing. That is one of the biggest differences besides the elbows and the knees and the kicks and the everything else.
But also Dana White is held accountable by his shareholders. They want to know where's he had I saw an interview. He said the shareholders came down and said, "Hey, where's this $20 million going?" So he's held accountable to a different standard. Now,
but that's the point. That's the point, George.
Exactly.
Boxing promoters aren't held accountable. They're
Mm-hmm.
not. They're not. They're not. The only one who could hold them accountable possibly is the fans. But then you gotta do like people gotta do with voting if you don't like a politician. You gotta go vote. That means they gotta go vote by not watching.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't happen to a large enough extent to
Right.
really send a message to the boxing promoter. They just don't care. But yeah, Dana White being in charge, he has that responsibility. He has to care. And it shows.
Yeah. And he's always filling the pipeline. You got the Dana White Contender Series. You have the fight nights. He's always filling the pipeline with someone new, and he promotes them very well. Now, the big fight, Canelo Alvarez versus David Benavidez. No, it's not. It is Canelo Alvarez versus Edgar Berlanga. Now, I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo on Edgar Berlanga here, but this is, to me, a showcase fight because they want a spectacular knockout, and they're going to get one on Saturday night. Berlanga's chin is very shaky, extremely shaky. He's been knocked out numerous times. Obviously, the leaked sparring footage of him getting dropped just recently in sparring. I think this is a fight to prop Canelo back up because he's getting a ton of blowback for taking this fight, and to put him back up a little bit on a pedestal to see if he does eventually take the David Benavidez fight, if he even does.
The good news about being a golden goose, the good news, and that's Canelo, is that, you know, you you don't have to, you fight who you want. You don't have to listen to no one. Kind of like Dana White controlling UFC. Canelo controls boxing to a certain extent. To a certain extent where he can pick his spots. He can say no to Benavidez, who the fans want him to say yes to. he can do that, and he can get away with it because he's still going to make pay-per-view money. He's still going to bring the audience. He's still going to make it because he's got that great Mexican fan base, and he is, he is the pay-per-view king. So
Mhm.
he can get away with that, and he does. He picks play. He only made one mistake with Bevo. He made a mistake, and you know what? He ain't making that mistake again. He ain't. He's picking his spots. People are gonna say I'm knocking him. I don't like. No, I'm just stating what I'm here to state from what my eyes and my experience tell me. You know, I believe my eyes. I know that he picks his spots, and he gets away with it in many dimensions. He can pick guys that are smaller than him. He can, and they got to come up to his weight. That's the way it is when you're the king, when you're the golden boy, the golden goose, if you will. And he does fights a lot of guys that are smaller, a lot of guys that are older. What he can pick all of it, and now he's in a position. I don't see it as any different than Munguia. He picked Munguia. He had more fights. Munguia had never had those consequential fights. He had never had those signature fights. He never had that kind of experience. He never was on that kind of stage. And he picked Munguia for one reason. Yeah, great record, undefeated, just like Belonga. You could sell it to the fan base. But he picked him because he didn't think he was ready. He didn't think he was ready. He thought that he had an edge in that area. And you know what? He was right. And he also thought style wise, McGee, he's not hard to hit. He's getting a little better. He's improving a little bit. He is, but he's not there. You can hit him. His defense is lacking, and he will engage you. So that was enough for Canelo. I'll take him. And I'm fighting an undefeated guy that's been a champ, blah, blah, blah. And he picked him, and he was right. McGee engaged him. Canelo is getting older. I think he's slipping a little bit, but he's still terrific. Especially at this level, he's still terrific. He's what is he? He's a good puncher. He's strong. You know that diet of Mexican beef is doing him really well. It's really it's doing him. It's doing. Go ahead, hate me. Go ahead, throw the knives at me. Go
Oh.
ahead. Go ahead, take the arrows and shoot them at me. Go ahead. You don't like the truth, huh? You don't like. I don't know what he is or what he's eating today. I don't, but I know what he ate in the past and what he's told me and us that he's ate. I listen. I believe. I see. What I'm saying is he is strong. He's physically strong at this weight. Remember, this is a guy who moved up. He was a junior welter. He was a welter, and now he's up and he's a big, strong super middleweight. Um, he punches well. He's a good counter puncher. He's got good eyes. He's accurate. He doesn't waste anything. He throws less than he used to, but it's serving him in certain ways because as long as he picks the right style guy, he doesn't have to punch a lot. He just has to punch at the right time. And he does that. So I think he picked Belanga again, along the lines of what you're saying, but he picked him again for similar reasons. Belanga's not ready. Whether you like him, you don't like him, you think he's ever going to be ready, whatever you feel about Belanga, his faults, his strengths, he's young, he's undefeated. Yes, he has been dropped, but he does have talent. Whatever. He's picking him because just like he picked Munguia, he ain't ready yet. He ain't ready. I don't know if he'll ever be ready, but he ain't ready right now for this moment. And yeah, I like Canelo in a fight. The only thing that I think gives Belanga a chance is if they come up with which I would, this would be my fight plan, to stay on the outside, use your jab, use your legs, even if they boo, stay on the outside, pick spots, use the younger legs, use your long jab, be able to box. Don't give a guy who's getting older, don't give him a chance to do what he does really well, counterpunch. Your guy can't counter you if there's nothing to counter. If you're on the outside, throwing jabs from the right distance, stepping out, there ain't nothing to counter. Don't engage him too much. If you don't engage him, you stay, he's got a little bit of a better chance. And there's one X factor, like it is for everybody. You don't know when that day comes that Canelo gets old. You just don't
Mm.
know. He's been pro since he's 15,
Yep.
16. Yeah. So you just don't know when that's gonna come. So, but you do know it's coming. So I like Canelo very strongly in this fight. But and again, I think I laid out, for me at least, with the proper evidence of everything I stated, why this fight's taking place.
You know, it's funny you said that about the one day you don't know when that you step up those steps and you just don't have it. I'm always reminded of Sugar Ray Leonard versus Terry Norris when after the interview, and I just talked to Jim Lampley about this when he had an interview and he just Sugar Ray Leonard said, "When I stepped up into the ring, I knew I did not have it." And yes, it does happen overnight. It happens very quickly, and you don't know. I don't know if that'll happen Saturday. But like I said, there is a possibility. You brought up the point of being in those fights, and you just don't know the riding all those horses and having those luxurious vacations, having those times where you don't have to worry about finances. Maybe, just maybe it creeps up and you don't want it anymore. I told Jim I'm 48. I get up every day at 3:05 in the morning to do the bagel business. I'm at a time now where I'm like, you know what? I put enough time in. I want to take it easy. I am not as hungry as I was back when the bills had to get paid and the people and the customers were on my
And
heels.
you earned the right not to be as hungry. You earned the right. And Canelo's earned the right too, if that's what
Mhm.
he chooses. If that's what, but then he's got to make that choice before it happens in the ring. That's the trick. That's
Mhm.
the trick. You can make that choice a little late and we get a bad bagel. All right, we'll forgive you for that.
Well, as always, Teddy, well, we're filming this now on a Friday. I'm gonna probably put it out next week, but this Saturday you're gonna be covering the UFC event on ESPN Plus. Teddy, tell us where they can get a hold of it and where they can get a hold of you on the Fight Game with Teddy Atlas.
I am a caveman. I am. I am. I wish. It's not just words. It's reality with me. I can't even, George. I can't even tell you how to get a hold of me, other than call me on my cell phone. I can't. All I know is you can watch the podcast. It's The Fight with Teddy Atlas.
Mhm.
It's on all the platforms. It's on all platforms you watch. Obviously, podcasts. It's also on YouTube. So The Fight with Teddy Atlas. Watch it, subscribe. This way you get notified. I do have. Thank God for my kids. I do have. Uh,
Instagram. You have your
oh,
Instagram.
there it is.
It's
It's
Teddy underscore Atlas. I'll have it
Oh,
right there.
this.
It's right there in the
Ah,
bottom there.
thank you, and I thank you, thank you, and I also have what's that other thing? Twitter, but now it's
Oh,
called
X,
X.
X,
Yeah,
yes. I'll put that there for you too as well. I'll put it in the
yeah,
description.
and I
But
got my
Teddy,
podcast, but
yeah,
that's
The podcast is great with the fight with Teddy Atlas. You also you can follow him on Instagram. Follow him. Hey, like and subscribe to his YouTube channel. It's very good. Teddy Jr. was the host last week. It was a great show. You had Teddy's a natural there with you guys. You got good chemistry. I mean, father son is always could be kind of weird in the boxing game, but good chemistry for you guys. It really was. And as
thank you.
always, Teddy, you have the Dr. Theodore Atlas Foundation. You have done tremendous things for us and our gym. We wanted to thank you. I know it's been hard to get hold of you. You've been overseas, coming back and forth, but now at least I could publicly thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. And I know you never like this kind of stuff, but Teddy, you have changed the lives of so many young athletes and so many of the young athletes in our gym. We gave out the Teddy Atlas Knockout of the Night Award, well, Fighter of the Night Award. It ended up being a knockout. Darius Stepney did. But we really appreciate it. It
Sure.
helped our gym out tremendously. You have no idea how. And it's taken kids who normally wouldn't have the ability to pay for some of the things there. And it's put those gloves, those wraps, those trunks, those shoes, and now they have to get their books in their pocket. And we would greatly appreciate it. Leo Talenka and I, from the bottom of our heart.
Well, it's my pleasure. And you know what? I appreciate everything you just said, but it's my turn really to say the only thing that I should say, and really I want to say, thank you. Thank you guys for doing that, for giving me a place to give a little something with my foundation to the right place where you're doing the right work. That is the most important thing, is for me being able to find the right places to give the help. And that when you got a gym that is taking kids and you're making them better people just by
Right.
using boxing and the discipline and the confidence and everything that comes along with boxing, by using that to just, if I'll pick one thing out of the myriad of things that boxing does for a young kid, it teaches them they can depend on themselves. Oh my God, how important is that for their fight in life? Forget about it. They don't have to go on and become a fighter, but wherever they're going, they need that. They need that to go forward. And you guys are providing that and the ability to get that and other things for these young kids to, again, to make, and this phrase, I'll finish with this, and sometimes it becomes a cliche phrase, but it's not for me. It's really not, because I don't use it unless there's a reason to use it. You're making the world better. And thank you.
Thank you, Teddy. And again, follow Teddy Atlas on all the social media platforms. Follow him on YouTube. Subscribe to The Fight with Teddy Atlas. Saturday, September 14th, you'll be covering the UFC Noche 306 live on ESPN Plus. Teddy, as always, thank you for coming on such a short notice. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Teddy.
Thanks for watching the Zapata Brand podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and listen where all podcasts are available.